Hello again, welcome back to Illegally Cited. This is BGFH. I am back for another kind of a combo video this time actually. We are going to do a nice little scenic trek through, guessing this is just going to be almost like a let's play here, because I think this game is really short. But there's this cheap game I got on Steam not too long ago called The Lost Valley. And it is a what one of those people call kind of like walking simulators sort of thing. You're Gone Home, your Stanley Parable, that kind of thing. Although this one really seems to take it literally. I've only played it for a couple of minutes, but it seems like it is just literally you're kind of doing this just scenic walk through this valley, and I don't know if there's like an ending or a point to it or whatever, but basically it's just a way to show off like a really nice video card if you have one. The game actually looks pretty good. I'm going to hit enter here. But also, what we're going to do is, I am recording this, I just got home from work not too long ago, and I am going to kind of do my usual sort of recap, thoughts, impressions of Apple's September 9th keynote. As I know a lot of viewers, a lot of subscribers like to like my Apple videos, my iOS, Apple TV, those kinds of things. So I figured, checked out the keynote while at work. I have a tech job at work, so it's nice that I was free for most of it, and I could kind of check out the keynote as things were happening, so I kind of know what we're going to get into in the next little while. So that's what we are going to talk about while we wander through this here environment. Really quickly before we get in there, main menu, super large text, good contrast. No real problem here. Like I said, there's not really much to this game. There's not really a lot of settings to this game or anything like that. You just kind of get in and go. It looks like when I go new game, I can choose summer or winter, and it kind of just makes the scene as you're walking a little bit different. It gives it a different kind of look. And it's really funny because this game, it's kind of, some people would call it kind of the artsy-fartsy sort of game. And it kind of fits the topic we're going to talk about today. So let's just go summer, as we are just summer is just starting to kind of go away here shortly. And we are doing a little pan over some trees here, and we're going to go into our actual view in just a second, and then we shall be off. So there's really no interface to speak of, really. It's just you walking around this pretty lush looking forest to some really mellow ambient music. It's actually pretty relaxing. So if you're into that kind of thing, hey, there you go. So, the Apple September keynote. I don't know all the, I'm not going to go through every little last detail. I mean, there are dozens, if not hundreds of sites doing that already, far better than I can. So, I'm just going to kind of give you my thoughts of the event and the products that were shown. I missed the first couple of minutes because I was finishing up an appointment at work, but stepped in, like I said, probably no more than, I would guess, 5 minutes into the keynote, where they were starting. I came in when they started talking about the Apple Watch and Watch OS 2. I do not have an Apple Watch. I've seen one, or actually I've seen a couple of them now in the wild, and the people that that have them, they seem to like them pretty well. I have played with one briefly a couple of times, and it is actually pretty intuitive. Even with using voiceover, I will give them definitely credit for that. They It seems pretty simple. It seems to make sense fairly well. But what I noticed right away is that I definitely want to wait for new hardware. Like, the concepts of the Apple Watch are sort of intriguing, but I don't know, especially with voiceover on, I think it's just a little bit too sluggish. A lot of the apps depend on being connected to the phone, tethered to the phone to work, so you're loading from the internet to your phone to your watch, and then you have voiceover running on top of that on a kind of underpowered chip. So it's okay, but personally I think I'm going to wait for the next one. They talked a little bit about the the apps, and that developers are going to get more access with watchOS to have more access to like the hardware itself and the internals and that. So that's good. And then of course they introduced a couple of new colors. See if Apple invents any other new metals this year. They announced like new bands, new color of watches, different kinds of steel and sport bands, and watch faces and stuff like that. So, wow. For some reason my mouse sensitivity is really low, but we're just going to live with it for now. We're just going to continue on. So, I'm not going to spend too much time on the Apple Watch, just kind of because I didn't see it all, and I really didn't find it super interesting. Again, I'm kind of more waiting for newer hardware before I think about taking the plunge, because that's a lot of money for a watch. I spent a bit of money on my Fitbit, and all it does is the fitness stuff, basics. There's even products that do probably, a little bit more than what my Fitbit does. But, if you're into the Apple Watch, I think watchOS 2 is going to kind of make even the Generation 1 watch, I think it's going to probably make it a little bit more of what people were hoping for and maybe expecting during its original release earlier this year. So then they went into the long-awaited, long-rumored, shall we say, iPad Pro, or iSlab as I call it. This is a 12.9-inch monstrosity. I forget the exact dimensions of the iPad Air and the Air 2. I think it's like 10.7? 10 point something. But, so it doesn't, it's only a couple of inches, but it's actually, even you go from the iPad mini to the iPad Air, and it's quite a bit different. The iPad Air is a bit lighter. There are things I like about both. The iPad Air is really nice and comfortable to hold for a longer period of time. But I like the little bit larger screen of the iPad Air, especially if I do magnification or gaming. That some of the interface elements can be a little larger as I'm kind of looking down this waterfall. That is really nice looking. That's some pretty cool stuff. Nice little view there. So the iPad Pro is a 12.9-inch screen. They're basically saying that it has more pixels than a Retina or an iMac, or a MacBook, I should say. So, take that for what you will. I'm sure the screen on it is really good. They have it a little bit thinner so that the touch layer, it's more responsive. Like they're doubling the rate of like how it responds, so you'll be able to do your gestures and things like that a little bit better, a little bit faster, more responsive. So that's good. Starting with the iPad Air 2 with iOS 9, you're going to be able to do your split screen gestures and things like that, where you can pull something out from the side, kind of like on the Xbox One, or like where you have like a little thin panel on the right hand side and you can kind of like almost like an app switcher sort of thing, or like a almost like the Charms thing in Windows 8 maybe. But then you can also do two half and half split screen applications. So you can have like, you know, your mail and your browser, or you can do you know, word processing and something else or whatever. And so they had other companies come up there and just do little quick demos. Adobe did a few things with their like Photoshop app, and they had a Photoshop, they had a drawing app, and then they had, I think it was kind of like a, was it like an Illustrator, or it's kind of like a publisher type of app where I forget what it's called, but basically you you know, you make your layout for whatever thing you're doing. So maybe you make a column here, a column there, you throw a picture over here, you put a chart in over there, that kind of thing. So they had that. They announced a AutoCAD for the iPad Pro, which, you know, if you're in the right field, that could actually be kind of cool, and manipulating some of that stuff in 3D. Then they also talked about medical. Oh, before I should have mentioned the watch part. The one thing that they did mention, which potentially, if it's done correctly, I think, and if it's adopted widely, I think it could be cool. They're talking about, they talked about this whole spiel where advancing medical care so that, you know, you and your doctor could communicate through your Apple Watch, and, you know, they would be able to monitor your data. If you had like a pregnant woman, they could monitor with the device. They could monitor like yours and the baby's heartbeat and communicate that back and forth. You know, ways to monitor different things. So that, I don't know, that could be interesting. They also mentioned, like, you know, because the watch is secured, like when it's on your wrist, it's, you know, it knows that it's tied to you. So they were mentioning like HIPAA compliance and things like that. They also mentioned a medical thing. That's why I thought of it during the iPad part of it, where the iPad Pro, they also talked about like an app where you have this, you know, like a 3D skeleton. So again, if you were the doctor meeting with a patient, you could, you know, show the part of the human body, you know, let's say somebody messed up their knee or whatever. You could zoom into that part of the skeleton, you could just show the bone, you could add muscle, you could add the skin, you know, and then using certain gestures or things, you could, you know, you could kind of show what was actually happening in 3D to the patient and then share that with them on their own iPad if they wanted to. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, there's things about the iPad. I might have said iPad Air again. If I did, I apologize. I'm not used to saying iPad Pro yet. But the iPad Pro. So the one hardware thing about it that I really like is it has 4 speakers on it. Remember when I did my iPhone 6 Plus review on the channel, I had mentioned, you know, with a device even as large as the iPhone 6 Plus, it would be kind of nice to have. It would be nice to have like at least speakers on both sides, like the top and the bottom of the phone. Well, the iPad Pro, it's large enough. They said, okay, well, we're going to add 4 speakers. We're going to put one basically in each corner, and the sound will switch differently, you know, depending on whether you're in landscape or portrait view. So it's good for like watching movies or playing games, that kind of thing. So that actually sounds rather intriguing. I've kind of wanted that for a while. I haven't seen visual confirmation. I didn't really see any pictures of the back of the iPad Pro yet, but sadly, Apple does not seem to have learned their lesson yet, and despite everything, they still have not seemed to throw in a 10-cent camera flash. So, no low-level lighting CCTV for you low-vision folks, thinking that, hey, this is going to be, you know, and maybe a new 12.8 12.9-inch tablet, that'd make a nice little CCTV. Well, you still technically can use the apps, but it's probably not going to be much better than the current crop of tablets, your iPad Air 2 and such, that are out there now, because I don't think... they still don't want to put a flash on it. I don't know why, but I've repeated that on the channel several times, so we'll just sigh and move on, I suppose. So, I don't know, I mean, the iPad Air, or, good lord, the iPad Pro, as a low vision user, it sort of intrigues me. I think that a 12-inch tablet could be kind of neat. Again, for watching movies easier, for playing games, for if I am using it for productivity tasks, if I am using any magnification with it, if I do choose to use that way. Although I've gotten really used to using VoiceOver myself, it just seems more efficient and quicker to me. But if you are a low vision user, it might be worth looking at. It's not supposed to be much heavier than the iPad Air 2, so I think it's a little bit heavier, but it's actually supposedly not too bad. Like I said, it is pretty big though. You know, even holding the 10-inch tablet for a long time, especially depending on what case you put on that thing, I can't imagine even putting like an OtterBox case on the iPad Pro. Good lord, that thing must weigh 5 pounds at that point. You just as well get a friggin' laptop. But I don't know. I like my iPad Air a lot. It is the iPad Air 1, so I'm not going to get... I won't be able to demonstrate some of the split screen gestures or abilities of iOS 9 for you guys, because my tablet is not able to do that. Some of that stuff would be kind of cool. I like the 4 speakers idea. Obviously, it's going to have a more powerful, faster processor. I'm not sure. They didn't really mention if they added more RAM to it. But I would almost, at least, I would hope that they would by now. Because a gig of RAM... I know Apple does a good job of optimizing their operating systems and stuff. But memory is cheap. You know, you could at least bump the thing up to... I mean, hell, I would put it up to like 4 gig if you're bragging about power that much. But even 2, that's at least doubling it. You'd have some pretty good performance that way. So then, we're not quite done with the iPad. Then they talk about a couple of accessories for said iPad. The Apple Pencil. Yeah, we're not even pen, man. We're going old school. We're going to have the Apple Pencil. And this is... It is a stylus, and if you are using, like if you're doing art stuff, if you are using it to draw, I think that could be fantastic. If you do things visually, and if you do handwriting, and you can actually read your handwriting, God forbid, like I cannot, that could be cool. I personally don't have a whole lot of interest in the pen. Partly because the pen itself is $100, and I know they put some smart technology in it and stuff like that, but man, that just still seems like a hell of a lot of money for a pen. But it gets better. Or a pencil, I should say. It's a pencil. Their other accessory, they basically wanted to create the Surface Pro. Thank you, Microsoft. And they said, yeah, you know what? We're going to make a smart keyboard too. And we are going to magnetize it to the iPad, just like the Surface Pro series. We are going, it doesn't power, it gets power from the tablet, so just like the Surface Pro. And it folds into, like it's its own kind of case stand thing, like the Surface Pro. And... unfortunately, the other thing is that thing, the keyboard itself, $160. No. That has to be a damn good keyboard for me to even think about it. And what they said during the keynote was that the keyboard uses the same technology that they put in that Mac that they announced earlier this year, you know, the one with the one USB port that I just laughed at, going, yeah, a computer with one USB port, good one, guys. They're using that like flatter keyboard style, and I did play with it at an Apple store once earlier this year just to see what the keyboard on that MacBook felt like, the MacBook Air. And I could probably get used to it, but I gotta say that I don't think, at least immediately, like I said, I can't really diss it because I haven't used it for an extended period of time to know whether I like it, but my first instinct tells me that that type of a thin keyboard is just, I like a little more feedback in my keys when I type. I like a little bit more of a, God, that's a nice view too. I like a little bit more tactile feedback, maybe a little bit more distance when I press the keys down. It just feels more natural to me. So yeah, $160, man. That's so the iPad Pro themselves are going to start at like, what is it, $799? So seven something, I forget the exact price. And then you'll bump it up. You know, they're basically going to be, well, no, never mind. They're basically going to follow the price scheme. I was thinking of something else. You know, they're going to follow a similar price scheme to the iPad Airs right now. You know, the iPad Airs are going to drop in price a little bit. The iPad Mini 2 is going to be kind of their entry-level smaller tablet, and then they are going for their iPad Air 1 and 2, that kind of thing. They did not introduce a new iPad Air. They did briefly, just like a footnote, say, oh yeah, there's going to be an iPad Mini 4, 4th generation, whatever. They did mention that, but they only mentioned that for maybe like 10 seconds, so I'm not sure about that really at all. And I might even be going backwards. I haven't really been paying attention, and for all I know, I might be going backwards. So we could maybe retrace our steps here. I'm not sure though. Oh, these might be the cars that because we had that water back. Yeah. I think I went backwards. I was not paying attention. Okay, let's try that again. So, yeah. I have mixed feelings. Part of me kind of wants to think about getting the iPad Pro, but part of me thinks, God dang it, man, that's a little big. I'm just imagining laying in bed and kind of holding it up, you know, reading or watching something. I get sleepy, fall asleep, smash a thing on my nose. That ought to feel really good. I don't know. The funny part is, earlier this year, I was kind of waiting to see about what they would announce today, because I talked to my parents earlier this year, and last year I had given them my iPad 2 because I really wasn't using it, and, you know, it's like, well, maybe introduce them to iOS, introduce them to an iPad. Okay, here we go. Introduce them to an iPad to see if they like it. And I thought, you know, it might be one of those things where they play with it for a week or two and they get bored of it. You know, a few months ago, talked to my parents and they're like, oh God, yeah, no, I use it every day. And even Dad uses it. Like, he'll go and he'll sit down and they check Facebook, they check email, they check. My dad is on this eBay kick. He likes to look up. He collects these Hot Wheels collections, and so he goes on and like looks up stuff on eBay. They get stuff for the farm, all kinds of stuff. But it's just funny. So not too long ago, maybe about a month or two ago, they call me and they go, yeah, you know, this is okay, but like, my dad goes, you're getting a new iPad this year, aren't you, right? I go, I don't know why. No, you're getting one, right? He's like, what do you mean? Well, then you can give us your old one, because the one that they have, like I said, the iPad Air, the iPad 2 is getting pretty old. Even when I gave it to him, I'm like, well, this is definitely an entry-level device. You know, this is something that they can, try to use. You know, I'm not necessarily spending any money, but I'm giving them something that they can play with and see if they like it. See if they like working with a touchscreen device. And I'll be danged if they didn't take to it. Like, they seem pretty addicted. My mom said, yeah, we were even in the store the other day, and Dad went over to go look at the tablets to see how much they cost. I just started laughing. So my parents, they're like, yeah, you should like upgrade your tablet, because then you can give us your old one. And, I'm not opposed to doing that either. I mean, hey, it's a good way to put it to use, It's still, the iPad Air that I have is still a perfectly good tablet, especially seeing as how I just got the thing replaced a few weeks ago. I ended up having something went screwy with my screen, and there was like some weird lines through it. You could still see everything fine, but it just had a few like really obnoxious lines here and there throughout the screen. Took it into the Apple store. I had Apple Care on it. They're like, oh yeah, it's broken. Go ahead and, factory reset your device. I did that. They said, here you go. Here's a new one. So if you're wondering about Apple Care, that's one thing I will mention. It is actually really nice. It is actually well worth getting, and a lot of times it's actually cheaper than getting like a phone carrier warranty. Especially if you live near an Apple store, it's great because you can just go in there and say like, yeah, show them this. It's kind of broken, and as long as it's not clearly neglect or misuse, they'll just replace it for you. I had that battery issue on my iPhone 5 middle of last year, and they replaced the battery for me on that, on the iPad Air. So the iPad Air I got replaced, like I said, just probably under a month ago. So if I did buy an iPad Pro and give the iPad Air to my parents, it would still be, it's almost like a brand new device because it's a replacement. So I don't know, that's partially the nerd in me says, new toys, faster, better. I don't know. I'm more than likely I'm not going to pre-order it. I don't know if I'm even going to get the iPad Pro, but it is sort of in the back of my mind. Again, as a low vision user, I think the balance would be find out how heavy, and not just how heavy, but like with the expanded screen size, how is it awkward to hold it with one hand and then still do touch gestures with the other because you got this big honking slab that you're holding. At what point does it get kind of ridiculous? Is 12.9 inches too much? That kind of thing. So, not sure when I'm going to go home to visit the parents, but I'm sure it'll be pretty soon. It's probably in November or something. Which the iPad Pro, they didn't give a date, they just said November. So maybe I'll have one, maybe not. We'll see. I don't know. So yeah, that is the iPad Air and the Apple Pencil and the keyboard case, the smart case for it. So after all that kind of stuff, they went into the also kind of long-awaited Apple TV. Now, we knew at some point that Apple was going to do some kind of a updated Apple TV because they just dropped, during their other keynote earlier this year, they announced they dropped the price of the original. So, of course they're going to come out with a new one. Well, I bought the old one anyway because it was cheap. I was curious. I wanted an accessible set-top box that I could just sit on my couch or in my recliner and still be able to navigate the interface with speech. That alone makes it really freaking nice. Because, you know, trying to read the DVD boxes or, you know, like all the content on the screen, I still have to get pretty close to the screen if the interface doesn't talk, you know, for navigating the Xbox or any other sort of set-top box or console. So pretty much a lot of this stuff that they also talked about for the keynote was leaked ahead of time, and we even saw some pictures that were pretty likely going to be it. It is an Apple TV. It is going to be $150 for a 32 gig model, or $200 for a, what did they say, 64 gig model. So better than I thought it was going to be, because there were people that were saying it was going to be an 8 and a 16. And I was like, you know what, you've got to be freaking kidding me. I mean, I know Apple's not very good at, you know, they still want to sell a 16 gig iPhone, for God's sake. They only have 1 gig of RAM. They're just not really good with like memory and storage and that kind of thing yet. They really underestimate what people want in that area. But I'll get there too eventually. So the Apple TV, it's a little thicker, but it's still really small. It has a new Siri remote, as they call it, in which you're also going to be able to, it'll kind of connect to your TV too, so you can turn it on and off, and you can use your volume, adjust your TV volume, which is actually kind of nice, because then you only need the one remote. So I'm kind of digging that. It has a couple of buttons, like your Siri and a home button, and I'm not sure what else for buttons, but then on the top it does have kind of a little touch area where you do your swipe gestures and such to navigate through the interface. So instead of having the four-way D-pad sort of thing, well, not D-pad, but the up, down, left, and right buttons that the current Apple TV has, you are going to use this touch area to navigate, or you're going to use voice search through Siri. The other thing that I like about with Siri, and just with the search in general, is the fact that until now, everything is sandboxed, where if I want to find a movie, I don't know if it's available via streaming through, through Amazon, through iTunes, through Netflix, through Hulu, through whatever. I have to go into each one of those apps right now and see if it's available through one of those. Now they're having more of a universal search. So if I search for something, I can search multiple locations at once, which is kind of a godsend. That will be really helpful. And that's kind of almost worth it, alone. You can also narrow it down, like you can say, show me the new comedies, or show me the movies, show me action movies from the 90s, or you could say, oh, well, narrow that, the example that they showed was, okay, let's look at some James Bond movies. That one is cool, but show me, I'm in the mood for some classics, so show me only the ones with Sean Connery. So you could, you don't even have to say, show me the Bond movies. If you're already looking at all James Bond movies, you could just say, show me the ones with Sean Connery. And it'll narrow it down that way. So, there's some nice searchability for that. So that'll be kind of nice. That should be a good feature to have. I noticed with when they showed the interface, unfortunately, guys, they're going white again, just like iOS 7, just like iOS 8 and everything. I really like the dark background look of the current Apple TV. But it looks like they're going with a kind of a white, more of an iOS 7, iOS 8 style interface. They're actually, their operating system is based off of iOS, but they're calling it tvOS, so it's kind of like a modified iOS for the Apple TV, essentially is what it's going to be. So, yeah. You're going to have all the services that you had before, all your video services. If you want to go back and look at my Apple TV video, check that out. Cheap plug. And they're going to add more. And then, just like people thought, you're going to have apps and games. Or apps, games are apps, but essentially you're going to have both apps and games available as well. So it'll have its own app store. You'll also be able to access your movies, your photos, your Apple Music if you're subscribed to that. They did demo a couple of apps. They showed this kind of 3D... Did they show that during the Apple TV? No, they showed that one for the phone. Never mind. But they did show like Crossy Road, which I have covered on the channel, the version of it for the phone with a tablet. That is coming to the Apple TV, and they're adding multiplayer to it. So if you have a phone, you can kind of pair up with somebody, and then you can kind of play cooperatively or competitively, I guess, with somebody else. So I don't know. That's cool. It will be nice to have games running natively on the Apple TV, because even when you're doing mirroring, you notice when I do mirroring for Reflector, when I do anything like that, or even if I mirror something from my phone to my Apple TV, sometimes there's a bit of lag. So for something that might require a little bit more like twitch or accuracy for swiping and gestures or whatever, it will be kind of nice to have that natively. They will support Bluetooth controllers as well. And the Apple remote is Bluetooth. So it's not like one of those infrared jobbies either. So, you don't have to worry about being in line of sight, that kind of thing. If I was going to get one, I of course would get the 64 gig version, because knowing me, I'll download all kinds of apps or all kinds of games or whatever. And again, it's one of those devices where, modern portable devices nowadays, you can't expand the storage. Let me check some, there's actually a couple paths off of here. Oh, interesting. But you can't add storage to them later, so it's like, well, you may as well get the bigger one, and actually it's only $50 more, so it's like, well, what the hell? Why not? That is supposed to come out in October. I don't think they gave a specific date just yet, so not exactly sure when that's going to happen, but sometime in October. And that, I am kind of tempted. I am kind of tempted to give that a shot. I have a couple of people who may be potentially interested in my current Apple TV. Again, I could give it to my parents or something, but actually, Jawbreaker said he might be interested in it. We're doing, kind of a split thing for, covering like Minecraft, costs and things like that. So, maybe we'll look at that at some point as an option. But yeah, I don't know. I may end up getting the new Apple TV, because honestly, that is the one thing that I kind of really think is missing from the current one. It would be really nice if there were apps that you could just use. And I'm guessing, it wasn't confirmed necessarily. They didn't mention it all on stage. But if, even the Apple Watch, the tablets, the phones, everything has had accessibility. Even the Apple TV has accessibility. So it would shock me, frankly, if the new Apple TV didn't have accessibility, didn't have voiceover. I'm probably 95, 99% positive it will, and I'm sure it'll work fine. The current Apple TV works really well with VoiceOver, so no worries there. So yeah, we have the watch, we have the tablets, we have the Apple TV that has finally been, we can finally put that rumor to rest. They finally did announce something, so people can move on from that. Anyway, then we get to, this was a long presentation. I think they started at like noon, and I want to say it went till almost 2:30. So, even some of, like, they did a lot of stage demos. They talked to a lot of app developers and things like that on stage, which was okay. But at the same time, it got kind of long. Like, in a way, there were a few parts where I was kind of bored. So, there's that. Although I did have to laugh when they were doing the iPad Pro stuff. They actually, believe it or not, they invited Microsoft to come on stage and demo Microsoft Office, because they're like, well, if anyone knows productivity, it's Microsoft. So that was really weird to see Microsoft on an Apple stage demoing their products for them. I don't know if that was a compliment to say, hey, okay, Microsoft, yeah, that's cool, you're here, or yeah, see, suck it. Now, you think your Surface Pro 3 or whatever is so hot. I don't know if that was kind of a jab at that or whatever, but it kind of got a laugh too. I was like, oh, okay. Microsoft on the Apple stage. Sure. Okay. What else? So then they talked about the iPhone 6S and the 6S Plus. Basically, what it comes down to, they both have new A9 processors, so it's another jump up in processors. Again, they didn't say anything about RAM, so I don't know if they actually upped that or not. Part of me wouldn't be surprised if they didn't, although, like I said, they really, really, really should soon. If not, they shouldn't have already. They're going to have the same screen sizes. So the 4.7 for the 6S and 5.5 for the 6S Plus. Same thing there. You're going to have a 12 megapixel camera on both of them in the back, so that'll be really good. I'm sure it takes really great photos. I mean, that's never been a problem. I've actually been very impressed with the iPhone camera so far, even going back to like the 5. I shot videos for the channel on my iPhone 5. And the 6 Plus is even, quite a bit better. So I'm sure the camera will be fine. And of course it has a flash, because the phones do. Despite the iPad still not having one. I'm sorry, I have to keep making jabs at that, because there's so many uses for low vision and stuff that use the camera that it does bug me. So I will poke fun at it whenever I can. So your screens are going to be the same. Your processor's a little better. Your Hey Siri command is going to work even while you're not plugged in. If that's a thing that matters to you, you'll like that. The other thing, if you're familiar with like the Apple Watch, they don't call it Force Touch like they do on the Apple Watch. Although the one guy did, he was funny, when he was demoing or talking about it, he did make the mistake and call it Force Touch once. But they call it 3D Touch. So now, it sounds kind of cool. And if you have an iPhone 5 especially, or maybe even a 5S or 5C, sure, definitely, think about, maybe you want to think about upgrading to the 6 or the 6S or the 6S Plus. If you already have a iPhone 6 or 6 Plus, I don't necessarily know if 3D Touch is really going to be enough to... I don't know. I don't know if that's really going to be enough to warrant getting the phone. I mean, yes, it's faster processor. The innards are a little better. They improve the wireless. They improve the radios in it. a bit more, which is always a nice thing. Don't get me wrong. And that actually has a huge deal. Like I said, I remember when I went from my iPhone 5 to my 6 Plus, good God, my wireless connectivity and even cellular in my Faraday cage apartment, it even got quite a bit better. So, there is definitely something to be said for that. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But, your Force Touch or your 3D Touch is basically where you lightly tap on something and it'll kind of let you peek at something. So, if you don't necessarily want to open it, but you want to take a glance and then you want to fully look at it later, you can do that kind of a thing. I don't know what kind of impact that's going to have, because they're doing all that from a visual standpoint. They say, oh, well, if you lightly tap it, you can kind of peek at it. But if you, push a little harder, it will actually open it. I'm not sure how that's going to translate to voiceover and what kind of interesting methods they're going to use to change or what uses they're going to make for 3D Touch for that. Because, obviously peeking at something isn't necessarily going to do you a lot of good because you still have to linearly look at the screen or, navigate the screen either by swiping or by explore by touch. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to... It'll be one of those things that we'll just kind of have to wait and see. And I think that's why I'm not super concerned. Like, by the time the iPhone 7 comes out, they'll have... both Apple and developers will have had a year to... they've had a year to experiment with it. So, by then, they'll probably have more cool features that'll tie into it. So, that'll be cool. What the heck? Huh. So, for some reason, not to change topic for a second, but there must be a Windows 10 thing here. I've noticed quite a few times I'll be in a game, and if I play it for a while, just out of the blue, I'll completely lose audio. I will completely lose audio. I don't know why. If, I can adjust the volume on my headset, it won't do anything. If I exit the game, or if I exit the game and go back in, it'll be fine. It'll play fine again. But there's some weird audio thing. I don't know why it's doing that. But, anyway, that's why you lost all sound effects and music, apparently. So, sorry about that, guys. We're almost done, though. I think, and I bet you when we head to this dock down here, I bet you the game is going to end. So we're just going to hang out a little bit down here beachside, and I will finish, we'll wrap up the kind of Apple keynote recap here. So, like I said, the phone, the 3D Touch, it'll be interesting. Like I said, if you have an older phone, one of the 5 series phones, yeah, I mean, especially with the bigger screen, especially if you are low vision, the 6 or the 6 Plus is going to be fantastic for you. You may want to look into that. If you have a 6 already, or a 6 Plus, you probably can wait another year. I mean, iOS does not run really sluggishly on my phone, so... and I still get great battery life on it and everything like that. So, it's totally fine. No problem there at all. So, I'm trying to think if I missed anything as far as, like, noteworthy specs. Oh, I suppose, like I said, I talked about the back camera, but for the front camera, they still have a 5-megapixel camera for, like, selfies and stuff like that. But they do something sort of interesting if you are using the front camera. It actually uses your screen as a flash. So if you are in a low light area, you can actually kind of get a better picture with the front-facing camera by using your screen. It'll automatically use a screen as a flash. And then they talked about this, what do they call them, live photos, where by default, I guess it's going to be turned on. But I guess if you take a picture, it captures, what did they say, like 1 or 1.5 seconds before and after. And then if you force touch a photo, the picture moves. Basically, think of it as like an animated GIF. So, like if I was looking out at this water here and I snapped a picture, you know, the picture would be obviously still, but if I force touched on it or if I 3D touched on it, the waves would ripple. And they even actually put a little audio into it. So they showed one where it was like a waterfall, and when they used 3D touch, it did the whole. You could hear the waterfall as well as seeing it. So I don't know if you're into that whole animated GIF thing. Sure, why not? But frankly, I'm not sure that I care. I'm really not sure that I care. Okay, or probably really don't care. But whatever, it's there. Sounds like you can turn it off. So yeah, there is that. 3D touch, I guess, is the big new feature, though, of the 6S series, the 6S and the 6X Plus. So those are your big features. They did talk also about through Apple stores, you can do this like for $32 a month. You basically get to upgrade you get a unlocked, you're not tied to a carrier. You get you can upgrade your iPhone every year, and you pay the $32 a month. You get the iPhone, and you get Apple Care Plus, which sounds like a pretty decent deal, except if you add it up, you're actually probably going to be, especially if you are able to sell or you have another purpose for your old phone, you're probably better off actually either going for maybe a contract or even buying it full. You might actually spend less, depending on whether, if you really, really want to upgrade every year, it might be worth it to you. But, if you're really going to upgrade every 2 years or something, it's one of those things. You are likely going to be paying a little bit of a premium for this. They make it sound pretty good, but yeah, I'm pretty sure you're going to be paying a bit of a premium for that yearly upgrade through the Apple Store. But it is available if you want that option. So, and then I think that was pretty much it. On the 25th, I believe, is when the new iPhones are going to be coming out. So you're going to be able to pre-order them this Saturday, which I will not be doing this year. And iOS 9 for all current devices is going to be coming out on September 16th. So we're going to get that just around the corner. I've actually been playing with it a little bit through the customer preview, but I can't really say anything about it because it's not... I'm sure there's whole kind of NDA stuff with that, so I'll just say that I have been playing with it a little bit, so I have a little bit of familiarity, but that is coming out next week, iOS 9. And then you're going to, like I said, be able to get the iPhones themselves. It's either the 25th or the 26th, but I want to say the 25th. So there you go. That is sort of a kind of a recap on the Apple keynote. Overall, it was about what I expected. I was pretty sure they were going to have new iPads. They had to say something about the watch. We knew there were going to be new phones, obviously, and we had a pretty certain idea that they were going to have a new Apple TV. So, honestly, and even, the things like, the new phone's going to have this Force Touch, or as they call it, 3D Touch now. That was even pretty well guessed. So, yeah, I mean, there's really nothing that caught me by surprise all that much. I think, I like the 4 speakers on the iPad, and when they release a new iPad Air, I hope they do that for all of their iPads, because it's just, or at least have one at the top and the bottom, so when you hold it in landscape, you have stereo. That would be nice. Hell, even a larger phone. I wish the new phones would have a speaker at the top and at the bottom. TV sounds kind of interesting. Probably thinking about picking up one of those at some point here in the fairly near future after it comes out. The watch, again, I'm waiting for version 2. Not watchOS 2, but the actual hardware revision 2 before I even think about that. The iPad Pro, again, I don't know. Part of me thinks it might be really cool to have a big screen like that, and part of me thinks that's going to be kind of big for, to hold for a while. So, again, that's kind of a wait-and-see thing. As for the phone, probably for me not going to happen. Probably going to wait for the 7. So there is that. Overall, I thought the presentation was a bit long. I think they could have sped things up. It's like, we don't really necessarily need to see Office. It was, they showed some interesting things, but they spent maybe a little bit too much time. Oh, they had the one that no one seemed to really care for. What did they call it? Guilt. Some shopping service I've never even heard of. Some high preppy fashion place or something. They showed this, this app for the Apple TV about shopping from the TV, and that kind of didn't go over super well, but, I can see, people think of Apple as, kind of a high-class item. So I guess, it sort of fits that way, but the name Guilt for a shopping service, I don't know if that's the best or worst name ever. If Amazon was actually called Guilt, there might be some truth to that, because I buy so much crap on Amazon that you kind of like, oh man, I really shouldn't have done that, because it's so easy with Prime and whatnot. But yeah, that was kind of funny, and it was really funny because I don't remember exactly the statement, but it was something like, "We can't wait for you to experience guilt on your couch with Apple TV," and just the wording of that was kind of hilarious. And of course, Johnny Ive was there to do his normal crazy, like over the top nonsense when they do these little video unveilings. Like the one for the iPad Pro is actually pretty funny. I even tweeted about it. It was they just had this really dramatic music, like they were unveiling just this top secret breaking thing. It was just really dramatic and kind of hilarious, actually. But then they did one for, like their other devices, for their phones and stuff, and he's always talking about like, "We are the greatest. We invented this new metal alloy that does this thing, and we are the first ever to have a context-sensitive thing. No one has ever done right-click before." Snark aside, but that's kind of what it, felt like. It's just some of those videos like that, they're kind of pretentious. I'm not going to lie. They're really into themselves and whatnot. The way it just, I don't know, it's just really funny the way Johnny Ive says some of that stuff. It's kind of pretentious. Like they just, "Oh, we invented it and we're the first ones to do it, and this is the best thing ever." Like, okay, buddy, sure, whatever. But overall, not bad, not really disappointing, but not, super exciting. I think it would have been cooler if everything pretty much hadn't gotten leaked well ahead of time. If we didn't know about some of this stuff and like, oh, that's actually pretty cool, it would have been cooler. It would have been a little bit better. But hey, you know what? That'll do. So that's kind of my thoughts on today's events. If you want to find out more specific specs and every little bit kind of rundown, definitely go check Twitter. Go check all the tech sites, all the Apple sites. I'm sure that stuff will be out there. But that's just kind of my wrap up, my interpretation, my kind of summary or recap on what I thought of the event. So like I said, I'm guessing when I go to this dock here, that's why I've been hanging out on the beach for a while. But there's nowhere else to go, so I'm pretty sure that the game is going to end after this. So, you know what? Not bad timing. Made it through this little virtual forest walking simulator, I guess. Might be kind of cool again. It's something I could easily picture getting home, just wanting to relax, just put on the old virtual reality headset and walk around, chill out, just look at some really nice graphics, whatever. Sure, what the heck, why not? I don't know. But yeah, so that's kind of a look at, was it the Lost Valley? And some thoughts on the old Apple September 2015 keynote. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Please tell other people you think might like the channel. Glad to see more views and more subscribers. Even a few mentions on Twitter from a few people, which is great. Getting a little bit of feedback here and there. Mostly positive, which is good. So glad to see that. And follow me on Twitter at BGFH79. At BGFH79. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. And as I think we're wrapping up here, we'll see what happens. But I will talk with you guys again. Yep, we got credits here. So yeah, that'll wrap it up. So hope you guys enjoyed it. And until next time, I'll talk to you guys again later.